All right. All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody that's joining us this morning on our DISC activities webinar. This is one, and I was sharing with Jen. This is one of my favorite webinars to do. I love different activities. Hopefully, you guys will share some of the activities that you've done in your DISC workshops, whether they're virtual activities or in the classroom activities. I love connecting with other trainers and full disclosure, I tend to borrow things from different trainers as well. So feel free to borrow whatever you hear here in this webinar as too. If everybody will, in the chat box, let's take a minute to get to know the people that are in our room. If in the chat, you'll write your name and your DISC style, your primary and secondary DISC style, and just put in there your favorite DISC activity. And I'm missing an I in my DISC. So for those C's that are with me, I apologize for that. But your favorite DISC activity that you've facilitated or that you've participated in. And I'll give you guys just a second to do that. I don't know if it's my system, but does everyone oh, there we go. I was going to say, I'm not seeing anybody's chats. Okay. Jen, flexing activities, flexing to the DISC styles. If you would at some point during this webinar, tell us what that activity looks like. That would be great.
Okay.
Welcome. Oh. Let's see, Devin. Yep. Just beginning to use DISC, so welcome. Absolutely, just sharing your different styles and being able to talk about it, that is very, very valuable. Okay, so welcome, Ben. Hopefully you're going to come out of this next hour with a lot of different activities. Okay. Oh, Caitlin, you're going to have to tell us about the Dr. Seuss quotes and connecting them to the different DISC styles, because that sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. Welcome, Mandy. Best worst day activity. Yeah, I really do like that one. That's a great play on a day in the life, I feel. Okay, welcome, Julie, Mandy, Cody. Okay, got the quotes. Yep. Okay, and to Marshall. All right, guys, welcome. Feel free to ask any questions. I have two of my colleagues, and many of you have probably either spoke with Alicia. There's Alicia. And then Jennifer, she's our newest and greatest team member. I don't know if her camera's working. Sometimes we have technical issues. But if you didn't know before today, Alicia's moving more into our marketing role. And Jennifer is taking over a lot of her client services responsibilities. So this may be the very last webinar that our lovely Alicia is on. But as always, any of us will be able to help you, but I just want to introduce you to Jennifer and let you know that she's continuing to move over into that new role. All right, please feel free to type in any questions that you have in the chat box as we go along, okay? And then afterwards, you will get the slide deck with the activities, okay? All right, so very first activity, this is one of my favorite activities, and it's, oh, here we go. Sorry, DISC activity. So there's 5 today: social network, build my team, blindfold stroll, be zen, and I appreciate you. There's 3 new activities for anybody who joined our last DISC activities webinar. I've got 3 new ones here. We're going to end with some questions and comments, and then Alicia will tell you guys about some upcoming events. The very first activity I want to talk about is social network. This is probably one of my favorite activities to do. I usually do this with an intact team or a team that really kind of knows each other to a certain extent. The social network activity, it's a great activity for team building. It encourages team members to really get to know one another, and it gives a platform for those individuals to share not only their communication tips, but some other pieces of their life that they may not have had the opportunity to share in the past. And it allows you to connect with them, okay, on a little bit of a different level. What you'll need for that: cardstock paper, poster paper, virtual whiteboard. What this is, and I have a template for anybody who needs this. And I apologize, I'm having some issues with my Zoom. Let me move this up here, okay? And you'll see the template down there. What you'll want them to do is plot their dot. So wherever their disc style is, or their disc dot is, you'll want them to actually put that on the disc graph there. You'll have them put their name, then a couple of fun facts about themselves. And I always preface this with whatever you're most comfortable sharing. We all have team members that they like to hold things close to the vest. And then there's team members like me that you'll know all about my life at the end of our half an hour session. But it gives them the opportunity to share a couple of things that you may not know about them. And when we debrief this, I always ask, why do you think it's important to get to know somebody at a different level? Okay. Does somebody want to answer that question for me?
Well, when you're building a team, when you get to know them beyond just the basics, it allows for more team cohesiveness and just more like thoughtful conversation. You're like building a relationship beyond just the surface level.
You got it. So thank you for answering, Caitlin. And that's exactly what part of this is doing. If I can get to know you at a different level, then maybe, hopefully, I'll be more intentional when I'm interacting and communicating with you. Okay. You guys can use and change this template because it's a Word document. But as I take them through the workshop itself, I have them fill this out. And then what they'll do is have them put them on a big board, either a big whiteboard, depending on how many people I have. I've used it where I've taken that brown shipping paper and I've taped it up along a wall, and I've had them put their social network card. I've had them tape it up there. And then once we get this completely filled out, then I have them walk up there and draw a line from their card to everybody that they have a connection to. Okay. It may be, I'm connected to you because of our style. It may be, I'm connected to you because we have similar fun facts. I'm connected to you because the same stressors stress us out. But as you can see in this other drawing, what will happen is we're going to start to see visually that we're all connected to everybody else. And hopefully we can use that connection then to continue to build that relationship. Okay. Has anybody done an activity like this or this activity? This is one of the activities that we talk about in my certifications.
Tana, this is Connor Devlin. This is great.
Hello,
Are
Connor.
some of these activities, are you able to email these to us after? I haven't actually seen these in the PowerPoint decks that we were given.
Yes. So this activity, and Connor, if I heard you correctly, it wasn't in the PowerPoint deck that you were given. This is a separate activity. So I like to bring in activities that are are different than the ones that you're given in the facilitation slide decks. Okay. And yes, the PowerPoints, the directions, the instructions, we will email those to you after, along with the template for the social network card. Okay. All right. Any questions about this particular activity? Okay. All right. So the next one,
Sorry, this is Cody.
one-
There is a question in chat.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Ooh, this is a good question, Sherry. I'm not, but wondering what size group this works best. I have done this with teams that are as small as 5. And the last team I did it with, it was a leadership retreat, and there were 35 people there. That was, so it was very cool watching them, because as people were going up, making their connections, drawing their connections, there were groups of people that would flock up there during their breaks, and you could hear the, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. And you could just kind of feel that there were connections being made that may not have been there before. Okay. All right. Any other, Lucy? Ah, yeah, you're welcome. And again, if feel free to make this your own. I've had facilitators and trainers who come back and have said, you know, I changed this up or I changed this up. Make it your own. Make it valuable to the group in which you're facilitating to. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. The next one, if I can get it to go, is Be Zen. So this, I'm introducing you to 3 new activities, and full disclosure, I haven't done these in my workshops. A lot of times my workshops are time-wise, we only have about 3 to 4 hours. So there are some tried and true activities that I always do. But if anybody has done any of these next 3 activities, or if you decide to integrate them into one of your workshops, I would absolutely love, love, love to get some feedback. Did it work? What would you have done differently? Okay. But this one, I think when I'm working with clients, one of the questions I get is about listening, and how do we actively listen, and how do we do that using our DISC styles? Well, one of the things that we learn when we're learning about DISC is that whole pace. There are some of us that like to move very, very quickly. There's some of us that really like to take a little bit more time. What this helps us do is it encourages active listening and a self-awareness of, are we truly listening to take in that information, to gather the information before we respond, or are we listening to just respond? And we all know that there's a little bit of a difference. What this activity does is it helps us create a little bit of a Zen moment, if you will, to where we're really having to kind of be still and listen. And then what's the appropriate response? Okay. So this is, okay. And you could do this virtually, or you could do this in the classroom, but have everybody that's in your workshop sit in a circle facing, or sit in a line facing one another, but they can't really see each other, no particular order. And then signal one team member to start counting from 1 to however many people you have. If you've got 10 people, they've got to get to 10. If you have 6, they've got to get to 6. But the whole goal is they need to just take some time, listen to who's speaking next. Okay. And then is it appropriate for me to say the next number? So goal is to get from 1 to however many people are there without talking over someone, interrupting them, or repeating a number. Okay. When that happens, then you go back to 1. Okay. I think there are some styles that just want to get to the end, to get to the goal, to get to the results, that hopefully this will resonate with them. Like, ooh, I got to slow down. I need to really listen. And is my response, is it necessary? Is it appropriate? Okay. And appropriate in the way, is it my turn to talk? Do I need to say the next number? Okay. Has anybody done an activity like this in the past? Okay. As I was looking at this activity and thinking about it, the debrief, I think, would be very, very interesting. How was it, if I'm a very fast-paced mover, to have to slow down and think about, okay, who's answering next? And then from the other side of it, if I live on the southern part of that graph where I'm already moderate pace, a little bit cautious and reflective, how did it feel to know that everybody's just kind of slowing down just a little bit? Okay, so there's definitely some really valuable debriefing that could happen after an activity like this. And maybe you do it at the very beginning of your workshop, and then you do it again at the end. And then what's the difference? And why did you respond a little bit differently? Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments about this particular activity? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would there be any way to do this like virtually? A lot of our like internal intact team trainings are virtual, so I don't always have the opportunity to have teams in person. So just wondering if there's a way that this can be done virtually if you're like trying to, I guess not, if you're trying to make eye contact or.
Well, I think it could, Caitlin, and I would love to get feedback from the other folks that are on the webinar, because you could have them turn their cameras off and take a minute that way. Even you could almost do like thumbs up too. So if instead of verbalizing it, do one of the emojis that are either on Zoom. I'm not as familiar with Teams, so I would assume that you have the same capabilities with the team platform. But I think you could convert this over probably pretty successfully over to the virtual space.
Okay.
So, okay, Cody, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. My question was really about the sort of the specifics. If we're in a circle, say, and the person next to me says 6, and I'm the 7th person in the, do you have to go in a row, or could anybody in the circle say 7?
Anybody in the circle could say 7.
Okay.
Yep. So it's really actively listening to say, should I be responding next? Okay. Oh, let's see so Lucy, okay. Okay. So Lucy, I love this. So it is a little bit tougher, okay? But if you keep your cameras on, and maybe Cody, you have everybody everybody faces everybody to look for those verbal cues. I kind of like that. Okay. Anybody else have any comments or suggestions? Okay. All right. Moving on to the next one. Okay. Oh. Okay. And this one is, okay, appreciation, giving everybody a little bit of feedback. I do like this one as well. A lot of times when we go through workshops, we don't get to talk about what our superpowers are and how do I appreciate you. A lot of it is talking about flexing and understanding other strengths and weaknesses, but I like this activity because one, it encourages us to use what we're learning in a positive way, of course. And I always like, from my individual standpoint, it's always nice to get some feedback to say, this is what I value you for. So this one is a really quick activity. A lot of times we'll do it at the very end where Post-its, poster paper, or a virtual whiteboard, you'll split groups into 4 people. Everybody writes their name on their sheet, and then each member of that group will create or give, this is the strongest impression I have of you, and this is why I appreciate you. Okay. And then that person, and there's really no debriefing that goes on. This truly is just an activity to say, hey, this is what I appreciate about you. Okay. So no debriefing necessary, but this is a great way to end a workshop, whether it's virtual or if you've got everybody in the classroom together. Has anybody done an activity like this? For those of you that have already facilitated workshops, do you do anything in terms of the appreciation or the feedback piece of it?
I've never done it this way, but we call it a posi tree, like a positive tree, and you have to go write a note about someone positive and put it on the positive tree. So put their name, put the positive note, and then put your name at the bottom of the Post-it note, put it on the positive tree.
Okay.
Does that make
I
sense?
like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that. So when you do that tree, Jen,
Yeah.
is it like branches? Do you actually draw the tree and then you've got all these branches of positive notes, positive
Yep.
limbs?
Yep. And then the Post-it notes become the leaves. Yes.
Okay. Oh, I like that. Thank you for sharing. That's a real, the visual that I'm getting in my head is, I really do like that a lot.
Yeah. Instead of a positive tree, it's posi tree. POSI.
POSI.
Posi tree. Yep.
Okay.
So similar, but just a little bit different.
Yep. Nope. I like that. Well, and it just makes a really nice visual, right? Here's my tree. This is my posi tree.
And it was facilitated early on in the morning so that everyone could add to it throughout the day or during breaks or during lunch. And then at the end of the day, that's when Post-it notes would be taken off by that individual to read about themselves.
Oh, how cool is that? I love that. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. Sherry Nielsen, welcome.
Hi, I've done one that's kind of similar to this, where everybody just gets a note card with a name of someone in the room. And then at the end of the activity, that I ask them to write, what do you see this person's superpower and how does it impact you? And then they leave with it. So it's not exactly like this, but then kind of everyone is assigned to someone, and I usually try to make the assignments based on how well people work together. And maybe sometimes like I'll try to assign an I with a C, since, you know, they sometimes struggle a little bit, or a D and an S. So it forces them to really focus on what strengths that person brings to our team, or the activity that we're doing.
Okay. Oh, I like that too. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sherry. So is it just paired up? So is it just a one-on-one, Sherry, or do you have them, do you have more than just one group, or do you do it in a smaller group, or is it always just one-on-one?
It's typically in either our leadership or operations team. So there's typically between 14 and 30 people, and they just get assigned one person per meeting or per activity. And I do it a couple times a year.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you for sharing. And then Jenny, welcome.
Hey, so I have a thought probably better used for multi-day experience in person, but it's been really effective where it helps the group identify things about themselves as well. So they basically decorate a brown paper bag, magazines, colors, something, right? That's just a little bit about them. And then throughout the experience of facilitation, you can drop notes in. Hey, I appreciated this about you. So there's specific activities that you can identify that you appreciate about them, not just characteristics or qualities, so they can see what was that specific thing that was valuable. And then they just get to take that back home with them, like as a little gift that they can read through after the experience. And that's been really powerful for a lot of people.
I love that activity. And have you done it with intact teams, or do you do this if you've got a workshop or you're facilitating an event that's like cross-departmental?
Actually, non-intact teams, it can be even more fun for, because it's a way to introduce yourself as well, right? If you have your name and maybe there's like images you chose out of that magazine cover or something you brought about yourself to reveal who you think you are, right? That's on the outside with your name, that as people get to know you through whether it's team interaction or facilitated experience, they didn't know you before, they can drop something in. So it's also an interesting kind of impressions experience that you can note for each other.
Okay. I love that activity. Jenny, thank you for sharing that. And it's just a brown paper bag, and you allow them to create their bag, so to speak, like at the beginning of the workshop?
Yes. So when they first,
Uh-oh.
during a break, during, just allowing a little bit of time. Sorry, I'm in a unsteady space. Anyway, yes, you do it at the beginning.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you for sharing that activity. That is a great activity. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Okay. I think Beeson. Oh, I missed. Okay. So we're going to go back here a little bit. This one is a new one. Build my team. This is great for exploring strengths and blind spots of a team. And it encourages them to start using the language and applying the language. A lot of times leaders, managers will come into their team, not a team that they've picked, but already a team that's been put together. I think this activity will kind of help them explore how to start really looking at, okay, this is my team. How are we going to, how am I going to have these conversations with my team? And how am I going to encourage my team to look at where's our strengths and superpowers? But where are those blind spots that we as a team need to make sure that we're looking at? It's kind of the stop, start, continue activity with the group reports that are out there. And facilitation wise, this is one of the activities that we use when we're introducing those group reports. But this is a little bit of a different play on that, right? So what we would have, so what you'll need is just a slide with several DISC descriptor words on it. And those descriptor words you're going to be able to find in the facilitation kit. Or if you have the quick DISC cards, all of those are words that describe each of the different styles. You'll want index cards or at least 2 pieces of paper, enough for 2 cards per individual, and then some kind of a bag. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to ask for volunteers. So you're going to select team managers and then the remaining participants and kind of figure out how many people you have in the room. You may only get 1 team manager, maybe you only get 2, but you'll want enough of the remaining team members to kind of make that team to have this discussion. But what you're going to do is the team managers, once everyone writes down their words, so you're going to ask them to select 1 word. And I know it's just 1 word, but 1 word that they feel describes them. You're going to have them write down that word on both pieces of paper, both index cards or pieces of paper, along with their name, because a lot of times you're going to have people that choose the same descriptor words. Okay. They're going to keep 1 of those cards. 1 of the cards are going to go into the bag. Okay. The team managers are going to take turns selecting a card from that bag. So they're going to build their team, not by necessarily selecting them, but just pulling them out of the bag. Okay. Once the teams are selected, give them some time as the team manager to discuss, okay, what's represented on our team? Give them the disc graph, have them plot their dots on that disc graph, and then do the stop, start, and continue activity, or something along the lines of the start or the stop, start, continue. Where are our strengths? Okay. What's the pace of this team? What are we focused on? Are we more focused on people, or are we more focused on the task? Where might our blind spots be? And what are those strategies that we're going to create and employ to make sure that our blind spots are covered? Okay. And then what's the culture of the team, the communication culture, the interaction of the team? How may other teams view us based on the way we plot out on this disc graph, and the way we tend to interact and communicate, not only with ourselves, but among others. This activity, it gets them discussing it. And you know, it's not as if this truly is an intact team, but it helps them start asking those questions, and it helps them start using the disc language, that common language that disc does an amazing job to build into your culture, to start talking about where are our strengths? What do we need to be aware of as a team? So often teams aren't, and when I say balanced, balanced around the graph. A lot of times there's a majority in one hemisphere than the other. And to be able to really take a look at that and to be able to talk about that, I think is very valuable to any team, whether it's a project team that you're only on for a short period of time, or if it's your permanent team. Okay. This, and I just think it would be kind of fun to get those conversations going as well. Okay. Has anybody done an activity that was similar to this one?
I've done not, well, I guess it's an activity, but we put people's initials on the disc graph and then kind of like reveal it to the team. And then have them kind of reflect and just say, well, where do you think the strengths are on the team, and where do you think there's areas of opportunity, or where might you need to flex more based on where the strengths lie? Like if it's heavy on CS and not a lot of ID, someone from the C and S is going to have to be a little more bold, or a little more excuse me, assertive, potentially, to counteract, you know, some of the quietness that they may face at times. But I like this approach to it, to kind of do this before you reveal that, as a way to see it. So
Yeah. And you, again, you could do this at the end, as let's put everything into play here. You've been through the workshop. We've explored what the different styles are. So how would you manage that? If I gave you this team, knowing everything that you know now, how would you create that conversation? Okay. Anybody else do an activity, even if it's a little bit similar? Any feedback? This is how I might change it or adapt it. Okay. All right. Last activity for this webinar, if I can get it to go here. Okay. I do an activity that's called the airplane activity. And I don't know, for those of you that have been in my certifications, we do talk about this activity. This is a little bit different. So one, you need to have the space for this activity, and two, there's a high amount of trust that's needed, because one of the attendees, or one of the team members, will be blindfolded. Okay, but this is blindfold stroll. This really improves the skill of giving direction and information. It encourages really a self-awareness look at, how do I give those directions? I was talking to Alicia about this morning, because she was saying, I don't picture this activity in my head. And I said, okay, think about sometimes when I'm going very fast paced, if I'm pulling energy from my I style, I'm a strongly inclined SI, a lot of times I'll give her information and I think that she should understand it because I can see the path in front of me. But am I able to really articulate that to Alicia? Or am I able to give her space to be able to ask me questions? So this is how this activity works. And again, adapt it as you need to, but you need tape, little bit of room to move, and a blindfold. And as a facilitator, what you would do prior to everybody coming into the room, if you can, is create a taped path. Okay, just make sure that it's a little bit jig-jagged. Please make sure you're not running that they're safe. So if they tend to go off the path a little bit, they're not gonna, walk into a wall or trip over a chair, but create that path, possibly put in some very soft obstacles, ones that you're not going to have to call the ambulance for, and then create teams of 2 or 3 people. And as I was thinking about this, the third person can kind of walk along the person that's blindfolded to ensure that they're not going to hurt themselves. You'll select one person as the guide and one person as the direction giver or the GPS giver. Okay. And then what you'll want to do is say, I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to get from the beginning of the path to the end of the path. Okay. And then you're verbally going to try to get them to follow the path. Okay. Without veering off of that path and not running into those obstacles. Okay. Once time's up, debrief it from both perspectives. How was it giving those directions? Was there frustration there when maybe they didn't follow the directions in which you were given? And then from that other perspective, were they clear? And why wasn't it clear? Okay. And then switch it up. Have the other person be the blindfolded walker and then the other person being their guide. Okay. The airplane activity, I think is great. It's done in your style groups, but this one truly is a one-on-one. I've had the opportunity to work with some really great leadership teams. And a lot of times the discussion comes down to, do you feel like you're giving clear and precise directions? And how are you making sure that there's clarity between the path that you see your team taking and the path that your team is taking? And a lot of times the misperceptions come up just because I think I'm giving those directions in a clear and concise manner. I know that that's what we have to do. Why didn't you know that that's what we were supposed to do? And the person that's receiving that information. Okay. Has anybody done a take on the airplane? The back-to-back drawing? Less chance. Yes, I've done that one too. And yes, there is a little bit less chance for concussions there. Anybody else you've done a play on this besides the airplane, the back-to-back drawing? I think last time we did where you're giving them pictures. So you're passing out pictures and you have to instruct the person who's blindfolded to draw that picture. And then again, just debriefing it. How was it being the person to give the directions? What was it like being the receiver of that? Okay. Any questions or comments on this one? Okay. All right. There were a couple of questions. The Dr. Seuss and connecting the styles to Dr. Seuss. Who?
That was me.
Okay. And Cody, I love this suggestion, that large group, asking for volunteers, let the group observe and comment. I think that that's a great way. If you decide to do it, that might be a really great way to kind of build that trust. Okay. All right, Caitlin. Dr. Seuss, we all love Dr. Seuss, and connecting it to his quotes.
Yeah, so I actually found this from another resource, but they use the disc, they use the everything disc, so it was like the same color scheme and whatnot. Because we've obviously all seen disc in different ways with different vendors. But it's basically like, and you can download it on their website for free, which is why I did it. I wasn't just trying to steal anything, but it's basically just a bunch of like Dr. Seuss quotes, and you go through and like split the team up into groups and have them try and figure out which disc style said the Dr. Seuss quote. So like there's one that talks about like, and are you going to be right? Yeah, 98.75% of the time. So like that's a C because they're very specific and very analytical, and like there's other ones like that. So then just come back and debrief. What did you get right? What did you get wrong? And just a fun way like to introduce disc and have people try and figure out styles to start off with. So
Okay. No, I like that. And I mean, Dr. Seuss, his quotes are amazing anyways. So have a little bit of fun with it.
and yeah, I will try and find the website and real quick and send it.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else that has an activity that they'd like to share? I think Jen, you were talking about flexing, that is something that even you have very short time periods with your workshop attendees. That's something that you always bring in. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I hate putting you on the spot, Jen.
No, it's okay. So it's the purpose of it is to help others begin to think about how they can meet the needs of the other styles versus just your own style. And so they have to have the foundation of the behaviors and characteristics of each style first. And then we go into just a very basic question of how can I'll use myself as the example. I'm a high I. How can my high I flex to a D, I, S, and a C? Even same styles have nuances. So I always say, come up with some ideas on how you can flex to your same style. And it's interesting because it's a simple activity and it's just one question, but then we brainstorm, or I should say the groups, I facilitate this virtual. So there's 3 to 4 people mixed in a small breakout group. They're mixed styles. So whether they're DIS or C in a small breakout group, they're coming up with how can their styles flex to a D. And it's interesting how they'll come back and they'll say, well, a D wants you to be direct. And then I go into more specific questions of, can you be more specific? What does that sound like? What does that look like for a D to be more specific so that they can begin to generate their own examples then from their own work area, their boss, their leader, their peers, whatever it may be. But yeah. So, I mean, it's simple. It's nothing, there's no materials needed. It's just a question and it's brainstorming but it's getting people to think differently than about themselves. So.
Right. Well, and I think any activity in which you can generate valuable discussion like that, I think is good discussion, whether you've got all kinds of materials or if it's just the discussion.
Yeah.
They're taking 1 or 2 nuggets to remember. If I'm communicating with a D, that's what you want them to take away from, or I or S or C. That really is what you want people to take away from your workshops. How do I use this? How do I apply it?
Exactly. And that's the beautiful thing about DISC is you can apply it right away.
Yeah. Yes. How many of you, so Jen and I were talking because she was one of the first ones on the webinar, but how many of you are using Catalyst? Because our workshops are getting, a lot of times time-wise, our time is getting cut shorter and shorter and shorter. There's only so many hours in a day. How many of you have converted over to Catalyst? And the reason that I ask this is because a lot of times you can assign some homework there to have them at least have a solid foundation of DISC when you get them into your classroom. Is anybody finding that? Is anybody using Catalyst and assigning some homework before getting them into your workshops or trainings? Okay.
Hey, I use Catalyst, but I would actually love to know how to do that because I don't know how to get in there and to assign them.
Oh, okay.
Will be
Okay.
another discussion, but that is
Okay. I think, and Alicia, do we have a Catalyst webinar coming up? And if we don't, for those that are interested, we can select a day and I can do a Catalyst presentation because Catalyst itself is amazing. When I'm working with new clients, I'm encouraging them to use the workplace on Catalyst, one, because it doesn't cost any more than just workplace. And when I leave that client, there is so much that I'm leaving them with, to extend that learning.
And there is a webinar coming up on, it's a couple months away, I guess I should say. It is on May 21st, but Judy will be going over Catalyst. But if you guys need to discuss it ahead of time, we can always set up a call with either Tanya, myself, whomever.
Yes. Oh, Sarah, you're facilitating the first one, 311, creating Yes, if you would let us know how that pre-work goes, I would love to hear the feedback. What went well and what you might change. Okay. And again, for anybody who's interested in Catalyst, how to do that pre-work, how to utilize that both before and after your workshops, reach out to Alicia or myself and we'll schedule a Zoom call, and we can talk about that because it really is an amazing tool that just reinforces the investment, reinforces the knowledge, reinforces the time that you've just spent with that team or that group, in teaching them what DISC is and what DISC can do for them. Okay. All right. Any other questions before I turn this over to the lovely Alicia, to talk about a couple of upcoming events, both our free webinar, next free webinar, and some other things that she'd like to let you guys know about. Okay. Perfect. Oh,
It looks like Cody has a chat.
yes. Use pictures with string finders is amazing. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I love this activity, Cody. So just if I am understanding it correctly, you're dividing everybody into small groups. You're using pictures from wherever, printed pics, magazines, and each person in the group selects a picture photo. Then they tell the group what's happening in that photo from the perspective of their D style. And then you just kind of debrief that and see what the other folks may perceive that picture doing. Is that correct, Cody?
Yes, that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. When you debrief that, then do you debrief in the smaller groups and do you ask, okay, what style are you and maybe why did you perceive it in that manner?
Yeah, I think the learning is when you switch pictures. So maybe I picked a picture of a bicycle and I'm an I and I tell my story. Everybody tells their story about their photo. Then we switch pictures and they have to tell their own story about this new picture they were just given. So now I'm looking at the picture of the bicycle, but I'm a D. Well, what's going on that same photo from my perspective and how differently we can look at things, the same thing from a different perspective. which kind of branches out into why do we communicate differently? Why do we sometimes misunderstand things? I mean, there's a lot of different directions you can go with that.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Cody. I love that activity. And you can pick whatever picture, because just even in my head right now, picturing a bicycle, I'm thinking about it from the different responses. The I's going to be like, oh my gosh, we did this great party ride. And, you know, the D's are like, well, this was the fastest bike. It gets me to wherever I'm going quicker. So yeah, no, I think that that is an amazing activity. Thank you for sharing. All right. I am going to turn this over to Alicia. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I know if there are any activities that you think of after this, please share them. Because again, as facilitators and trainers, I love to share things and I love to borrow things. So thank you very much. All right, Alicia.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Okay, so we have a full list. I just did the next couple months of upcoming events. And we do have, and Cody just got done talking about StrengthsFinder. We have a webinar on March 12th going over StrengthsFinders. And then if you want to go a bit further into that, on April 16th, you can actually attend one of our workshops. So Phil will be the trainer on that, and you can actually take the profile as well. And then just bouncing around again, April 2nd, we'll have another webinar on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I believe most of you here are certified trainers, but we do have certifications coming up too. So we have both our virtual and in person. And in person, we will be in Kansas City. And I know Tanya would love to see you there. So hopefully, if you are not certified, you can join one of those certifications. And also, we just talked about Catalyst and that webinar. So on May 21st, we will have a webinar on that. And then a couple of our De Bono workshops. If you are not familiar with power of perception, or, and I misplaced this one, it should be the 6 thinking hats on May 28th and 29th. Those would be 2 great workshops to attend. And you can also intertwine the De Bono with DISC. So calendar events, and I'll be sure to include these in my follow-up email. That way, if you want to register for any of these, you can. And then we also ask if you'd be willing to, we love Google reviews. And if you can give us a review, you are entered into our drawing. So you can enter into that and you'll be notified if you are the winner that month, and is also listed in our newsletter. So if you can leave a Google review, we always appreciate it. And I will also include this in the follow-up. Otherwise, you can just take a quick picture with your phone for that QR code. And then I'm going to just lead into our last page with, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. We are posting weekly, if not daily, just about events, some of our different products that we offer, or just some daily insights. So
Liz,
this will be coming to you soon. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to mention one thing. For those of you that aren't familiar with the De Bono tools, especially the power perception, one of, oh, and I'm getting a little bit of feedback. So if you guys are too, I apologize for that. But when critical thinking skills, that is a program that we've had some people ask us about. Power of perception, it is a tool set that helps us critically think about situations. It's one of my favorite programs from the De Bono toolbox. So if you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out, even if it piques your interest. It's called Power Perception, but it really is it's 10 critical thinking tools. It helps us separate out our thinking so we can really look at something critically and from a 360 viewpoint. Okay. All right. Any questions for either Alicia, myself, Jennifer? All right. My name is Tanya. I thank all of you guys for spending an hour with us. Please do not hesitate to reach out if there's any questions after this, especially about Catalyst, if you don't want to wait until our May webinar. All right. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and have a great weekend.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Cody, if you're still on, we will get back to you with that, with your
Okay.
question. Okay?
Thanks. Perfect. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.